Well, we want to say hello and good morning to our listeners from around the world. I want to welcome you again to another edition of This Morning with Soulivity, broadcasting live from our studio right here in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, and on KMET 1490 AM radio in Southern California. My name is Brian Westley Johnson, and of course, I am so glad that you're here because with me, I have two very special friends of mine, Candice, Harper, and Tami Gaines. Good morning, ladies.
Good
Morning.
morning, Brian. How are you?
Good. Listen, before we begin our show, I want to first say happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone. Wishing everybody the luck of the Irish. Are you guys Irish? Got partially
I
Irish.
have, yeah, I have Irish in my
Yeah,
background.
right. Me too. A little
Yeah,
in
me too.
Yep,
Just
I'm
a
all mixed up.
little kiss of the blarney. Just a kiss of the blarney there.
May the ride rose up to meet you. May the road rise up to meet you.
I
I don't
love
have
it.
any. I don't have any great Irish brogue, but I do eat potato.
I tell you what, I'm definitely having corned beef and cabbage today. That is like
Oh,
one of
Yes,
my
oh,
favorites.
me too. Oh my
we're
God.
having
Thanks
that
for that,
too.
Tammy. Thanks
Yeah.
for that, Tammy. I mean, I could
Yeah.
just
Oh
dig
my
all into
gosh.
that.
Right.
In fact, okay, that's it for this show of This Morning with Soulivity.
We're leaving right now.
Listen, we've got a great topic coming up. But before we begin, we want to remind everybody, listen, we want your questions, your comments, your thoughts. This is an interactive conversation. That's how we have real conversations that empower you every single day. Just post right to our live chats on Facebook or YouTube, and we'll do some shout outs. We'll get your comments up in our live stream and we'll talk about it. Um, well, ladies, hold on to your hats. Got a quick story that may pull on your heartstrings from the Washington Post. Um, it goes like this: when a fourth grader in Florida was frustrated about having to sit out his afternoon recess, he penciled a word on an outdoor bench: kill. A teacher asked him about it, and he said it was what he wanted God to do to him. His mother, Mara Marino, guessed he was hurt and angry. He's not a mature 10-year-old, she said. But soon a sheriff's deputy who was working in the school stepped in, using a controversial state law, the Baker Act, to order an involuntary psychiatric evaluation and confinement for up to 3 days in a mental health facility. Marino, who rushed to the school after getting a call about the incident, was stunned, pleading with the officer and asking to be with her son. The deputy drove away with the terrified boy, and Marino followed closely behind them in a car, watching her son stare out of the back window, sobbing, his hand on the glass. Woo. Woo. We were talking before offline before we came online about this, and I think we're all in agreement that these laws around supporting young children, this is the Baker Act, and I'm going to give you guys a little bit more information in a minute, but that there's some good things and there's some bad things about it, and we're going to have a conversation about it today. But man, I think regardless, when you hear stories like that, you can't help but have your heartstrings pulled, and you just feel that deep in your gut.
Yeah.
What's your first reactions, ladies? Candice?
Well, I mean, I always like to preface everything with I haven't actually raised a person from beginning to adulthood. Right.
Right,
But,
right.
what happens first in that story is just the humanity of how both the child and the mother must have felt, right? The mother, like you're driving behind a police car and your 10-year-old is in the police car. Like I can't
Yeah.
imagine the amount of anxiety and trauma for her. And then I think, for kids and for him in particular, it's like, it's where is that line of making sure to hurry up and step in if it seems like there's any sort of mental challenging or emotional issues going on, and overkill. I
Right.
definitely feel like being in a police car from writing a word is overkill.
Right. Right.
Right? So it's like,
It wasn't just any word.
yeah, sure. It wasn't just any word, but also it was a word that could have been picked up in a movie, or that he could have heard on a read in a comic book. So I'm not saying that it should have been discounted, but the back of a police car, I feel like is extreme.
Yeah.
For the right. I could see if it was like a continuous behavior, or if he actually hurt someone else.
Right.
That's just where I am with it.
Right. What about you, Tami? I mean, we're both parents.
Well, so this is a trigger for me, I could tell you that. That's
Oh,
why
yeah.
that's why I was like, ooh, I don't know. I could see it either way.
Mm,
I could tell you that we had an incident with our next door neighbor's kid, who was like 10 years old at the time
Mhm.
and being raised by his great grandmother. The
Mm.
kid was out of control,
Right.
wild. Like he sprayed graffiti on one of our neighbors' cars.
Wow.
Um, he ultimately sent my daughter, she was 10 years old at the time, or 11, the nastiest, sexiest text
Oh.
you've ever
Oh.
read.
mm,
And
Uh-uh. Uh-uh.
Bria did not want to go to school for a couple of days. And I finally called my son. I was like, what is going on? And he said, tell her to show you the text.
mm,
So, anyway, let me tell you, at the end of that day, besides almost killing this kid who has like serious mental issues and behavioral issues,
mm,
he ended up running away, and I had to help her go find him. The kid he belonged in a psychiatric unit, and I ended up calling the police. We cornered him.
Yeah.
We found him down the street. We cornered him, and he just became completely wild. And I said to Shane, like, you know what? Um, I'm calling the police. Like, this is outside of my scope.
Yeah.
I have a kid at home with behavior issues, so I can just see both sides of it.
mm,
Uh, and by the Yeah, I can see both sides, and I'm not opposed to. Oh, the police took him away. The handcuffs is overkill, but the police took him away. Like, we watched the police come here. They were very gentle and very concerned. And what happened? They
Mhm.
put the kid right back in his house again.
Wow.
mm.
And
Wow.
he like literally to this day, they're 17 now, 16, 17. To this day, he's never gotten the help that he needed.
Mm.
You
And I feel
know,
like they should have maybe taken him somewhere to get some help.
when I was thinking about this and I was trying to get into my heart around what I really felt about this, I
Mm.
immediately thought about when I was a kid dealing with my mother's mental illness
Mm.
and
Hmm.
how back in the 70s how that was treated, right? And this was when when you still had mental institutions, right? You still had like mental like hospitals that were specifically for mental, health patients so
Mhm.
that they were in a facility. Um, the police might have been called, but it was EMS that was the first responder,
Mm.
Hmm.
right? So EMS would take that person instead of that person being, handcuffed and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
They might have been put down on a gurney and that kind of thing, right? And like, where they're incapacitated if they were, acting out or something like that. But it was always in an ambulance. They were always taken off that way. And I'm remembering my history around this because it just angered me because I saw this arc of history, right, where that was happening in the 70s, and her journey in mental health was not the prettiest. But
Mm.
as the years went on, you saw a change in how the system reacted to her.
Yeah.
And it
Hmm.
went from that kind of treatment where she would be, involuntary committed for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, sometimes even up to 8 weeks, and when she came out, she was mom again. She was
Mm.
healthy, right?
Hmm.
To, "Oh, they calling the police and they're locking her up." right? She's in for a week and then she's back out again, and she's basically the same person that she was before.
Yeah.
And it just, so I see this and it breaks my heart, because it's like, here you have children that, some of them, maybe not all of them, but some of them really need support. And are they getting that support? And so the question that I have in all this is, did they just enact the law and then, okay, well, we're going to figure out how we're going to give the support? Or did they actually put the support in place and say, now we're going to enact the law to help children? Because, as we go through this, I'll read some more information about like, um, what the supporters and detractors of this law are saying. And it just seems like there's this gap.
Yeah, it's like
That's
it's
it.
the capability to deal with how nuanced it is, because there's so many different levels of psychological challenge.
Absolutely.
If you enact something that has like a blanket effect over a large group of people and can't deal with the nuances, then there's going to be just as much tragedy as solution, which that's not a good thing.
Right.
Well, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such an interesting what you just said about that gap. It's like a chicken and an egg situation, right?
Right, exactly.
So when I first read, when I started skimming the article, my immediate reaction was, where are they putting these kids? Because
Ooh,
I can
yeah.
tell you,
Yeah.
and I'm not surprised at where they're putting the kids, but I can tell you. So now I told you about my neighbor. My son has extreme behavior problems, and we were in and out of now hospital emergency rooms, by the way, not psych units, because there are only 5 pediatric beds
See.
in northern New Jersey.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they would just house us in the emergency room until he was calm and they gave him something to calm him down. And then they would send us home because there's no place to put them. So when I read the article, I was like, wait, now part of this is a little bit impressive. Where did they find to put these kids? If there's only 5 beds in all of northern New Jersey, and then you told the rest of it, which is they're not being housed properly.
Yeah.
I'll end this segment by just reading some data on this. And they said every day in Florida, children and adolescents are involuntarily committed for psychiatric assessments. In the fiscal year 2021, involuntary exams happened more than 38,000 times to children under 18, an average of more than 100 a day, and nearly an 80% increase in the past decade. The law is so deeply enmeshed into the state's culture that it is widely used as a verb, as in the 6-year-old was Baker acted. Wow. Listen, we're gonna take a quick break. We're gonna keep talking about this. Listen, we want to know what you think about all this. We know that it's complex. That's why we're having this conversation. And we're gonna take a break, and we'll be back in about 2 minutes. Hey there, this is Brian with Soulivity.com. I want to share some exciting news about our new Aspire Academy by Soulivity. Now, you probably want to know what the Aspire Academy by Soulivity is. Well, it exclusively connects you with people around the globe and who share the intense desire to improve themselves and create a better life for themselves today. There's classes, there's workshops, there's live events, and even more exclusively just for you. You see, I wanted you to have a safe space where you could grow, you can learn, and it would empower you in all aspects of your life, including your mind, your body, and your soul. So how do you get started? Well, it is so easy. First of all, the best part, joining Aspire Academy is absolutely free. Just click on the Join Now button, sign up, and begin your journey. As a special part of this invitation to you, there are some free courses that are available for you to try from our amazing roster of coaches and collaborators. It's our way of saying thank you for all of your support and being with us along our journey of expansion. I hope you enjoyed the Aspire Academy by Soulivity today. Start the process. Learn more about your passion, your purpose, and how to live a higher quality life. And we're back with more of This Morning with Soulivity. We are talking about there's some state laws that are around our country that are permitting involuntary mental exams for children where they can even be retained for up to 3 days in a mental facility. The Florida Baker Act can be used when a person is thought to be mentally ill and poses a substantial likelihood of serious harm to themselves or others in the near future if they don't have care or treatment. Now, supporters of the law say that this law has helped keep people from hurting themselves or others, and that it can force a family to reckon with the child's need for professional care. When police and others involved are sufficiently trained, the process can work well as one strategy of intervention, that says the chair of the Florida Suicide Prevention Coalition, Stephen Roggenbaum. What do you guys think? Let's talk about the good parts about this. Let's, dig a little deeper into this. Candice or Tami?
Well, we're definitely back to the training of the police, right?
Well,
Right?
or Candy, or giving them, or putting social workers in police precincts.
Yes,
oh,
which I actually think
I'm
is
hugging you right now, Tami.
Well, I think
social
Yeah.
workers in police precincts and
Yeah.
mental health workers just all around, right? Sorry,
Yeah.
that's my water heater. Mental
Look, I
health
stood
workers
up.
all
I
around,
stood
like,
up. I was like, did I leave something in the microwave?
I did too. I'm like, wait.
sorry about that. Like
Geez,
even
where's my coffee? No, anyway.
even in schools, it's like they have school counselors, but I feel like, as we move through time, that becomes an even more purpose, a more needed structure within the educational system, besides just learning life skills, but having mental and emotional support. And that's something that public schools have not been known for, because it's just about creating employees, right? So in all areas, there should be mental health professionals.
It's interesting that you say that, Candice, because again, and I'll let you go, Tami, in a second. When my parents first started working for the school system, part of the initiative, specifically in big cities, there's an initiative called the Great Cities Improvement Project, where that was part of the plan, right? You had school community agents, as my parents were working, that brought the community get together, like the village raises a child, right? That kind of concept. But you also had attendance agents in every school. You also had a social worker that was in the school that could identify, children with special needs or children that were going through some kind of traumatic event in their family life, and they could wrap that child and that family with support. That's all been eliminated.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I think it hasn't completely been eliminated, but we haven't talked about the economics of this.
Ooh,
Because
all right.
I'd said before, we talked about the haves and the have-nots.
Yeah.
So in my kids go to public school. I'm very involved in the public schools. They have school counselors. When I was getting divorced, I was able to go to the counselor and say, "Hey, listen, this is what's going on at home. Just keep an eye on my kid for me,"
Wow. Yeah.
which they did.
Wow.
Except I don't live where most people live. So if you go to a different community, the school counselor is replaced by security guards,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think there's some economics here. I really do, because depending on the community where you live, the police are going to be better trained. When the cops came to get the next door neighbor's kid, it was like that was one of their own kids. like they were very sensitive to what was going on. But if I go 20 minutes down the road to Newark, that's not going on in schools.
Yeah.
Right. They said here again, I want to just make sure that we're giving our audience all the facts around this. Florida is not alone in detaining children this way. But of the 6 states that keep publicly available data on the practice, including California, Colorado, Connecticut, Virginia, and Wisconsin, Florida is the outlier, says David Cohen, a professor at the University of California at Los Angeles, UCLA, who studies the issue. In 2018, the state committed children nearly 16 times more often than Wisconsin, one of the less zealous users of its provision.
Wow.
Listen, y'all. Listen, first of all, can we just level set on one thing?
Go bring it home, Tami.
Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready, bro.
Okay, first of all, I love Florida. I love vacationing there. I was going to try and move there at one point. By the way, believe it or not, they have one of the best special ed programs in the country.
Yes,
which is
they
why
do.
I was looking to move there.
Yes, they
Now,
do.
that said, Florida people are bat blank crazy. Listen, they're banning books. They're banning advanced placement, African American studies.
Right.
Ron DeSantis is a nut.
Yeah.
So
I knew that's where you were going because
he's crazy. He sits. I don't know. The dude is crazy, and he has a bunch of crazies in his administration.
Yeah.
So the fact that Florida is leading on this is not surprising.
Well,
I
and it, yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean,
I feel like they do everything wrong.
Well,
he's the same one who recently said in an interview he knows when someone likes him because they make fun of him. That someone asked him a question.
Oh my gosh! Speaking of children,
exactly.
and I think this too now, and Tami, thank you for that. Because I think what you're bringing into this too is these certain laws are so extreme that I can't help but look at them through a logical political lens, right? What is there some politics going on here? What's happening in terms of why now? Why can't they build the facilities for children and have that be part of the law? Like by 2025, you'll have facilities built, and then you'll enact a law where you can have more mental health professionals come. No, they just start. It feels as though they just started locking up kids. Well, why do you do that? Specifically, like for communities of color, which we'll talk about in a minute. It just seems as though, man.
So are we? All right, let's stay with this for 1 second. What were the other states, Brian? It was like Wisconsin.
So we've got, and then we'll go to break. California, Colorado, Connecticut, Virginia, and Wisconsin. And so, yeah.
Oh wow, that's an interesting mix of states because
right.
they don't have anything politically in common.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
I wonder when it came about in Colorado, if it had anything to do with Columbine, because I feel like Columbine was one of the first big shootings that really started to press attention.
Could have.
That's a good segue though, because I was going to talk about like school shootings.
Why don't we take a quick short break? I mean, really short break. We're going to continue on this because I think that is part of this, and maybe we can also talk about, not necessarily some alternatives, but some additional things that maybe need to be happening around this to make this more effective so that there is less of a divide between people who are saying this is great and people who are saying hell no. So let's take a quick break. We'll be right back, everybody.
6 years ago when I started Soulivity, my vision was to support everyone in improving their life through the discovery of their passion and purpose so they could become the best version of themselves, to battle fear and ignorance and create a better world today. Get inspired to live your passion and purpose. Visit Soulivity.com now.
And we're back with more of This Morning with Soulivity. We are talking about the involuntary mental exams for children, the laws that are happening across several of our states in our country, with Florida being a more severe case, if I can say that, of use of the law.
They're a case.
That's funny. Let me talk quickly about the detractors of the law. I think we've kind of talked about some of these things, but they say even a night of psychiatric detainment is traumatic in the life of a child. Some have never even slept away from home. Some interpret it as being jailed or punished. And after the ordeal, some parents move their children into new schools, scared it will happen again. Adding to the toll, some families are saddled with medical bills. This goes to what, Tami, what you were talking about, for time their children spent in psychiatric facilities. The tab may be several thousands of dollars, depending on insurance and other factors, several parents and lawyers said.
Oh my goodness. You know what I would write on that bill? LOL. And I would send it right back. You took my kid involuntarily. You're gonna charge me for that? That's crazy.
Yeah. And just, make sure that people understand this. One problem is that not everyone using the law is equally trained. Some police officers get training in crisis intervention, but that's not comparable to the expertise of mental health and medical practitioners. And that 60% of the cases for people under the age of 18 were initiated by police, and 40% were made by health professionals, according to state data. Florida has mobile mental health response teams that get involved in cases, but there's just not enough of them, says April Lott, chief executive of a Florida mental health nonprofit called Directions for Living. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I feel like it's such a broader issue, Brian and Candy.
Yeah.
There's just not enough mental health professionals available.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like my daughter asked
Snaps.
me to
Snaps on
Yeah,
that.
my daughter asked me to go to therapy. That you don't have to tell me why. You just have to say that. Like if that's
Right.
what you need, do you know it took me like 3 months to
To
get an
find-
appointment? They were all booked. But yeah, that's if she asked me 3 months ago for help and I can't get her help for 3 months. Like imagine people that maybe are not that resourced.
Yeah.
And there's just not enough to go around. And Brian, the other thing I was going to say, just to go back to this for a second.
Yeah.
I believe there are some upsides
Mhm.
to this.
Yeah.
Because I think fundamentally, number one, there's a lot of parents that stick their head in the sand when their
Yes.
kid is clearly calling out for help, or they're
Right.
clearly like hanging in the balance.
Right.
And parents are like,
Agreed.
nope, he's fine. He's perfect. And then what the next kid shows up and does, it's something horrific.
Yeah.
The other piece along those lines is I think I mentioned to you guys a couple of weeks ago, my daughter's friends, we were talking about, there was another school shooting and we were talking about it.
Mhm.
And her friend said, oh, we know exactly who the kids are that are about to pop.
Oh man.
So I said, why don't you tell somebody? And they were like, no, everybody knows. The teachers know.
Yep.
Like the counselors know. So why,
Yep.
if you're a teacher and you know that a kid is like needs help, like why wouldn't you get it? So part of me is like, oh, I think the profile of the kids that they're taking away is probably problematic.
Mhm.
But involuntarily committing a kid that needs help, I'm not like completely opposed to that.
I agree. Especially given the circumstance that you just said, right? Where parents are internalizing for themselves what their children are going through, and they don't, oh, I don't want to do this. I want to stick my head in the sand and not do
Right.
anything.
Right.
Because that may also mean that I have to start doing
Exactly.
some stuff for myself,
Mhm.
right? Candice, you talk about this all the time about it being an inside out job, and
Yeah,
that
we do.
I also think that I love the fact that you talked about. I think this is a reflection of our society when it comes to mental health, and now our children are being, in part casualties of that.
Yeah.
Where like I was telling the story about my mom, where there was support. It still wasn't the best support, but at least there was some support. Till now, there really isn't that kind of deep support, you know, unless you're wealthy, unless you can really pay for it,
Exactly. Exactly.
right? And the same is true for our children, right? And so, what did they do with the adults? Well, a lot of times they just lock them up. So, what are they doing with the children? A lot of times, well, specifically in Florida, a lot of them are just being locked up.
Locked up. Yeah.
And they're not getting treated. Want to bring in a couple of facts here so we can really talk about this.
Hey, Brian.
Yeah.
Real quick. Isn't that law from 1971, the Baker Law?
It was. Let's see. I can just do a
Because
quick.
I'm pretty sure I saw 1971.
Yeah.
Isn't
Yes,
it
it was enacted. It was originally acted in 1971, and then it was changed, was updated under the DeSantis administration to do other things, right?
Never mind. Because I was gonna say, mental health has come so far in our acceptance of it. I was gonna say, I wonder why they haven't gone back to revisit. But if DeSantis revisited,
it doesn't matter.
Well, yeah, and I mean, again, it's through the political lens. I'm gonna do the most extreme things that I can possibly do to, rile up some folks, and because he has not even officially said that he's running for president, right?
Yeah, not yet.
No, not yet. So he's riling up folks right now, and so that's the lens that I look through this sometimes, where it's I'm gonna do this and blame some other folks and say if they just would take care of their kids, none of I wouldn't have to do all this. And people are saying, yeah, that's right, and he gets more support. I think it's I mean that's just my opinion.
I think you're dead on.
So really quickly before we go to break here, it says more than 1,200 students went from district schools to psychiatric facilities from 2016 to 2020. This is from a lawsuit that's been filed, right? And this includes 250 students in elementary school. There's a lawsuit that accuses the specific county, and I'm trying to remember which county it is, but of having seized Black children for involuntary examination at twice the rate of white children, a disparity that worsens for young children. 40 of the 59 children under the age of 8 examined under the act in that period were Black. Just chew on that. We're going to take a break because I need a break.
Hi there, Sheila Applegate here with some exciting news. I've joined the incredible Soulivity team as the host of the new Consciously Awesome live show, where I will be sharing insights to help you discover your full brilliance and claim the vibrant life you deserve. So tune in every Wednesday right here on Soulivity TV to join the fun, and remember to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss a single episode. Have an awesome week, and I will see you on Wednesday.
Have you ever asked the question, if I was to be anything, what would I be? Regardless of money, regardless of status, beyond popularity and fame. Living your passion, feeling your life has purpose. Soulivity is a space to nurture that which lives in all of us. A place where work can become play, and doing what we love creates the dreams of a lifetime.
And we're back with more of This Morning with Soulivity. We've been talking about certain laws around the country that enact that allow police and mental health professionals to conduct involuntary mental exams for children under the age of 18. Before we get to some tips, I think that we really need to give people, because I don't want people just to be, I mean, if you can be angry if you want to, or you can be happy if you want to, but I want to make sure that we give people some tips about this. Remember the 10-year-old that we talked about at the top?
Mm-hmm.
The 10-year-old who wrote "kill" on the bench of his public charter school, which said it would not comment because of student privacy laws, were the lucky ones. He was taken to a hospital where a doctor saw the boy quickly and decided he had been wrongly Baker acted. According to Marino, his mother, the doctor called it a grave overreaction. So I wanted to end the segment before we get to final thoughts in the next one about, Tami, I know that children with special needs in general is close to your heart. You even have a organization that is around supporting them. What say you around like children's mental health and what parents can do to support their children in their mental health?
How long do we have?
Yeah, I know, right? That's a whole another show. We won't do this.
That's a whole. It's so big, but I mean, fundamentally, I think parents need to become really great listeners. Not so much talking. Which I learned from, growing up, like, we didn't talk, like, we listened. And because of that, I flipped it. I think it's really important for parents to just stop and listen. When I say listen, like, don't think about what you're going to say. Don't think about what the kid is saying. Like, I think just you must listen and react in a way that doesn't want that child to go back into like a cave.
Right.
Like, give them space. Like, we need to give kids space to speak without consequence.
Yeah.
And I also think, and I think this is hard for adults, we need to develop an extreme sense of empathy.
Wow. Yeah.
I think our like empathy and listening are just, and by the way, also deciding you don't have all the answers. Like, my son lives in a facility.
Right.
Like, after 15 years of complete chaos, I finally put my ego aside. And I just said, I don't have the skills to do this. So I think parents also need to know when to say when.
Wow. I like that. Candice, why don't we flip this and, and talk a little bit more about like this inside out job, right? And that, if a parent is dealing with something that might be an extreme case, what are some things that, you're a love and life coach. What are some of the things that maybe you would tell that parent to do for themselves in that moment?
Yeah, well, I mean, first, I just want to say there's one thing that holds true, even in this post-pandemic violent era that we live in, is that it takes a village, right? None of us does anything by ourselves. And I love what Tami pointed to, and just, I want to acknowledge you, Tami, for that admission about just being able to say, this is beyond what I'm capable of, right?
Right.
So I think, we grapple with this idea that, living in this country is survival. Get for yourself. If you remember, like people buying all that toilet
Yep.
paper, making
Yep.
sure you
Oh
survive,
my
Oh yeah.
gosh.
right? But when it comes down to it, the only way that any of us survives is by making sure that each other survives. And
Mm-hmm.
I think, for parents, and just being someone, because I used to teach after school program, and I've also done a lot of mentoring. So my communication and connection with children has to do with being part of other people's villages, right? And I think that what's there for all of us is the willingness to ask for support and to rely on others for support, and also to understand that they do what we do, not
Mm-hmm.
what we say do.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Behave
Yes.
how we
Yep.
behave, and as long as we are polarized and violent and, like Tami said, unempathetic with each other, that's the children are just a symptom of that. And I think being willing to be really flat and honest with ourselves about that is at least a door into being able to be stronger and better examples for the people that are coming up and will one day be adults. And also remember that you're raising an adult. A lot of times parents raise with control, and it's like, no, you're raising an adult. And so, like Tami was saying, that listening piece is so important because what
And
you're showing them is exactly who they're going to be.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Well, I want to make sure that we give people some information around, like, if they need some support from some professionals. NAMI is always a great resource for it, and I just want to make sure that we put that in the chat and get that out there to folks.
Yeah. There's
Yeah, go ahead.
I,
Go ahead.
I'm just thinking. So here's something really tangible. What I learned to become when the twins were born, and maybe before that, was a really good advocate. Like, honestly, this is a weird perspective, but when I walked into the school for a parent-teacher conference, I didn't walk in as a parent.
Right.
I walked in as an advocate for my child.
Right.
So I think if you suspect that your child is having emotional issues, whatever they may be, or behavioral issues, or they're acting out, your goal is to, number one, become an advocate. And as an advocate, I think first step, right, is to actually directly talk to your kid. I don't care. They could be 2 years old or they could be 10 or 15. Like, you got to talk. If you feel like you're not getting the right answers, then it's your job to go get resources. So, Brian, you just mentioned one.
Yeah.
But I think the first stop is to the school. Like, you
Yeah.
go to the school and you talk to the teachers. By the way, I did this a couple of months ago. I just made appointments with all the teachers and said, like, how does she seem to you? Is she different than she was like 2 months ago? And then I sat with the counselor in the school, and then I believe it or not, I talked to her siblings. So I think the whole thing, there's like a little bit of a chain of command, and it requires you to be very objective and have like no ego, and change your hat from being a parent to being an advocate.
Wow.
Because that's what I believe we're put here for, is to be the voice for our kids.
I think on that we're gonna go to break, because I think you just dropped the mic. Well, listen, we're gonna take a break, everybody. We'll be back with some final thoughts.
Have you ever asked the question, if I was to be anything, what would I be? Regardless of money, regardless of status, beyond popularity and fame, living your passion, feeling your life has purpose. Soulivity is a space to nurture that which lives in all of us. A place where work can become play, and doing what we love creates the dreams of a lifetime.
Are you ready to take that first step towards true, unwavering inner happiness? Are you like thousands of people who have everything they need, not want, but need, and still can't seem to find happiness and fulfillment in their lives? If so, the Steps to Happiness show is for you. On my show, you will learn about the principles and practices that lead to true inner happiness. Because guess what? It isn't found in our external environment, but within ourselves instead. Together with my guests, we will explore the latest physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being practices. And together, we'll advise you on the actionable steps you can take towards a happier, more fulfilled, authentic life. So I invite you to join me each week on Soulivity TV on the Steps to Happiness show with me, Teresa Greco.
And we're back with more of This Morning with Soulivity with Candice Harper and Tami Gaines. And Candice, I'll go to you first for some final thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, we were just exchanging about how this is such a deep, multi-layered conversation. And, it's very difficult to button something like this up. My encouragement is always that people are willing to check in with themselves and be self-aware and be healing of themselves, because the way that we help others, love others, are empathetic with others is by filling ourselves up to overflow. Yeah. And so, while this is one issue, there are so many issues surrounding children and adults and how we move through the world. And like I said, we're post-COVID, in a polarized condition right now. And it's just so important that we're taking advantage of the fact that we live in an era where mental health is actually paid attention to. And the more that we can make support accessible and ask for support and help each other and, just be good humans, be compassionate, give each other a break, give yourself a break so you know how to give others a break, the more that we can, be a force for solutions. And I know that those aren't necessarily practical steps, but, that's where it sort of begins, I think.
Wow. What about you, Tami?
I talked about being an advocate, which is a totally different perspective if you're a parent.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that advocating, the second piece, is just asking for help. Whether you're at the bus stop and you're telling another mom, listen, my kid just cut up the curtains. I don't know what to I don't know what to do. I think speaking up and speaking out on behalf of yourself and your family and your child is the most important thing. Like, you're not alone in this.
Right.
I think there's like 14 million families in the country that have a child with some form of special needs, including behavioral.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's it's interesting, Brian and Candy. Like, when we're talking about little kids,
right.
I think there probably is a bunch of parents out there that feel like, oh, my kid is nuts, and I have the only one, and I have the only kid like this, which is not the case.
Right.
So I think speaking up is critical.
Wow. I'm at a loss of words, because I think both of you, close this out the best way that I know that it could be closed out. I'll only say that I think that this is a journey, and that for everyone to get to a place at which we're supporting ourselves and our children with our mental health needs, and to finally break away from the stigma that mental health is so unlike physical health. Listen, you break a leg, you go to the doctor, right?
Mhm.
If you're suffering from depression, you go to a mental health professional, and it's clear as that. There should be no stigma around that. And so that's all I'm going to say about that. We got another fantastic Tami's Table coming up on Monday. Tami, who's going to be your guest this week?
I am super excited. My guest is Jen Saunders,
Nice.
and she founded Righteous Rebel Adventures and Coaching.
Oh, I love that name.
Yeah.
Righteous Rebel. So her fundamental premise is empowerment through play. So she does adventure coaching. Like she'll take a group of people on a hike or canoeing or rafting. It's all really interesting. I met her when I was in India, which is funny because she lives in California. Anyway, she is going to join me. First of many, we're going to talk about how righteous rebels build resilience.
Nice.
I will definitely be tuning in.
Yes, you will. Yes, you will.
That's an inside joke, everybody. Candice, you got some great love coach happening right now, along with some other things that are happening. Tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, my intensive program, Love Life Skills for Leaders. I help professional BIPOC plus women create a love life that loves us back. And if you use the promo code Soulivity50, you get 50% off. And then also, I'm still looking for submissions for my compilation book that's all about women of color and our experiences with home, whether it's a traumatic experience or a serendipitous experience. And I'm asking people to submit their stories to bit.ly/The Home Project 2023. And if you are accepted, all the proceeds go to helping women of color, BIPOC plus women, create home stability and the contributors of the project, if there's any proceeds. Yeah.
Girl, you know, I bookmarked that site. I'm making a submission.
Please do.
I love it.
I love that. Yeah.
Listen, it's a submission and an admission that I've never told anybody.
I love it.
About my home story. Like, yeah, I love what you're doing. It's so important.
Fantastic. Listen, we only got a couple of seconds left. Just want to let everybody know, follow us on social media, join our mailing list. Go to soulivity.com/this morning for more information. Again, on behalf of all of us, I just want to say thank you for joining us for another heartfelt, I would say, episode of This Morning with Soulivity. We hope that you come back and join us every weekday at 8 a.m. Eastern for our live broadcast, or listen to us Thursdays and Fridays live at 9 a.m. Pacific on KMET 1490 AM for all of you out on the West Coast. Until next time, keep on living your life with passion and purpose, and we will see you again later.
This work is subject to copyright owned by Affinity Global LLC. Any reproduction or republication of all or part of this is expressly prohibited unless Affinity Global LLC has explicitly granted its prior written consent. All other rights reserved.